So, you are a researcher here at the University of Porto. Could you tell us more about yourself and your background?
I started here in the University of Porto as a teacher, assistant teacher, as we start, all of us. And in my first years, I start teaching nutrition and public health. That were my main interests. I always liked these questions of trying to understand how persons eat, what they consume, and how this can influence their behavior, health behavior. So my main interests were always regarding nutrition and public health. I started teaching public health, and in the first years of my research, I started to understand what was the behavior of communities, of persons, and how this behavior was influenced by some drivers, namely economic drivers or the access to food. These were my main interests. Also because in Portugal we have this huge problem of not only obesity but some chronic diseases associated with food intake, diabetes, hypertension. All of these huge public health problems are related with the way we eat. And I start with this in my first years of university in the faculty of food and nutrition faculty. And after some time, I realized that most of these determinants of food were not a question of education. That was my prior interests, how education of people can change that. And I realized that many of these behaviors were related with also with some determinants that were divided in our community, and divided in these terms. We have people with very poor, bad economic background that eat poorly also. And this could be changed by public policies. And I start to be more and more interested in the public policy. So I changed from public health to public policies, and I realized that public policy can have a huge influence on the behavior of people. And this, my second life, was related with the interest of that. Then I was nominated as responsible for public health and policy in the Ministry of Health, and I spent some years in Lisbon responsible for this public health. And I start being more and more interested in this public health research related with public policy. So I start doing public policy, and at the same time interested in the research of the public policy influence on behavior, on health. And after that I returned to my faculty, and I continue to research on this. So today I can say that I'm an expert on public policy mainly. And this is the focus of my research in this moment. My PhD students and my research is focused on that. And then I have a public policy lab that is a research group that are interested in the public policy around food and food issues. And it's good to work on this area today, and I still have interest, although I'm now director of a faculty, but I continue to research and to work on this kind of area.
What do you hope to achieve with your research?
Well, this is a type of research that in the last years we didn't have too much money as it would be helpful for us to take lots of decisions that we need to take. Just to give an example, I realized how important this research was when I was conducting this public policy in Lisbon. I realized that I need a lot of information that I didn't have. For example, I have to reduce the quantity, the amounts of salt in our food. How to do that? What is the best option? Is, for example, creating educational programs in schools, or on the opposite, if I have a tax, that everything that is too salty as a tax. Two different options. One, educating, the other, creating a tax policy. What was the main, where I should go? This is the type of options that usually the politics need to have. They have two options, and they need, or they choose one or the other, and what is the impact of this decision? This is the type of things that we need also to create research to help people that take decisions to make an option. And we don't have too much research on this area. So I think the fact that in the last years we have marketing for children, we have now a law on that. We have a law, we tax beverage, sugar beverage. Nowadays Portugal has a tax on that. We have laws to support deprived communities. So these type of laws, these type of measures, they also need to be supported by research. That's the kind of things that nowadays I'm interested in and I'm doing.
In what way does your research contribute to global health issues?
Well, I think that the big problem in this moment is the difference between economic conditions in our populations, and this type of research can support politics or policies that give a response to that. Just to give an example, a practical example to understand this issue. Nowadays in Portugal, and I believe that many in European countries happens the same, what we have is a mass of obese people, diabetic people, people with hypertension. The main groups of this disease are related with bad economic condition. So when you see a people with obesity, probably this person has economic problems. So to know this gives a capacity of intervention of all the governments completely different that if I don't know this type of information. This is needed to support politics that don't create more differences between those who have more money and those who have less money. This is the type of of research, and then to create a policy, respond to that, and create a more, I would say, harmonized society when we don't have such differences between those who are very rich and those who are very poor. And this is, for me, one of the achievement, the most important achievement of this type of research.
What impact can your research have for future generations?
Well, I believe that everything that is related with food has usually a long-term influence. A children that is obese, of course he has a problem these days, but the biggest problem would be when he is adult. So we are having impact in young generations, trying to have older generation more healthy. Another example, Portugal, we live longer. We have a huge longevity. But at the same time, many of these years that we live after 65, 66 years are with the disease. So what I would like is that we can live longer without disease, not living longer with a doctor behind you every day. This is the type of impact that this type of research can have, creating conditions, environment, so that people eat healthy and live longer without disease.
How is your research transferred to the classroom? For example, are there any innovative pedagogical methods that you use?
Yes, we change the way of teaching in these years. Until I would say a decade ago, I didn't have this type of policies working on the field, so I didn't have examples. I remember I gave examples from other countries that are having policy on this area. For example, some Nordic countries. I gave the example, or Sweden, or Norway. Norway, for example, that has a food policy since 1974. So I gave that examples. What we can do today is that I can use examples from our own experience in Portugal in this moment. My case studies, and I use usually case studies, I like very much to use case studies because they are real cases that I know them because I was working on them. So I can say, this happened in this moment in Portugal, we have this problem, how do you solve that? And I give all the tools that a student can have to solve the problem. And I create some groups and I say, these groups, help me, give me a solution. I'm a politician, you are technicians, I need a solution from all of you. Then I give the problem, I give the tools, and I wait, of course, I support the process. And after 2-3 weeks, the group came back again with me and they present me their solutions. And then I compare 3 or 4 groups and their solutions for the problem that I have created. This is very interesting because sometimes we have 4 groups with completely different approach. And all of them are interesting. But they are different solutions. Why? Because people have different ways of solving a problem. Sometimes because of their background, sometimes because of their position in society. For example, some groups believe that the solutions are inside of us. We have the solution, we are the solutions. So I can eat less salt if I know that salty food can kill me. So the idea is to give information so that people can solve their problems. Others would say, no. Education is not the solution. You must tax, you must forbidden people. If you don't sell, it's like a chocolate. You can have 2 ways of eat less chocolate, right? I can give you that if you eat too much chocolate, you get fat and you don't buy chocolate. But other people would say, well, if I have chocolate at home, it's impossible to resist. So the best approach is to don't buy chocolate. So you have, in this small example, 2 ways of solving a problem. Not giving the bad food for you, or educating you and you can have and just eat a little portion every day, but not too much. It depends how you relate with the society. You can say that one group is more liberal, other group is more social democratic, so we are talking about food policy. So this is about politics and the way you organize the society. But these are very important discussions because you turn also your students in a more political actors. That is also very important because you need that your students are related to the society. They are not only scientists. They are people with a conscient mind. They are actors, very important actors in our society. We cannot put our academics outside of the problems of the society. So our students usually like very much this approach because they believe that after these discussions, they have more skills, more capacity of discussing the problems of the society with a more open mind and more capacity of discussing things. Sometimes with a more capacity of arguing, giving good arguments, quality arguments to have these discussions. And it's very interesting because in the beginning, our students didn't like politics, not policy. They say, well, I came here to be an health student, not a policy maker or etc. This is something that I don't like because these guys are corrupt. Are not people interested. But at the end they say, well, in fact, and we go back to the Greek society of 2040 years ago and say, all of us are politics. The genesis, the base of the word policy, politics means policy, means polis. Polis is city, is the citizens of a city. So we are citizens of a planet and you need to be involved with the things of our daily basis. So I believe that nowadays our students are more involved in these problems because they have this type of discussions. So I think this is the most, for me, the most positive aspect that I can take after changing a little the way of teaching and creating this pedagogical environment for them. And I believe they like it at the end.
What is your opinion on the role of international cooperation and university alliances such as EUGLOH?
Well, for me, it's evident. I don't know if my colleagues have this feeling, but someone who teaches food and food policy, we understand that the food that we eat, most of them is not produced here. It's produced outside. So there is a huge food system around the world. What I eat here, imagine if I eat a piece of meat that is produced in Argentina, and this comes from Argentina to my plate. The decision that I take to buy this type of food has enormous consequences in the planet. Because you raised a cow in Argentina, you use thousands of water from Argentina to raise that cow. It transported by sea, for example, by plane, using a lot of fuel, and then you take the decision to buy this type of food when you go to the supermarket, and you can buy beans from Portugal, protein source, or you can buy meat from 4,000 kilometers from here. These are decisions. Of course, you can support the farmers of Argentina, and you can do that, buying their foods also. So you have many options. But what we see is that there is a relation between your daily things that you do, just choosing the food to eat when you are in the table of the restaurant can influence the rest of the world. So discussing the impact of a global alliance for education, having this type of examples, for me, it's very easy to understand the benefits of creating a network of people to discuss global issues, because nowadays in the health, and we can see what we have seen in the last years with COVID, with other problems, that the planet is a global arena. You cannot close the borders and the frontiers of your country, because everything is interconnected. So creating a system where people also interconnect knowledge and networking in this area is, for me, completely or absolutely urgent and necessary.
Well, thank you so much for joining us in this coffee break at EUGLOH.
Okay, thank you very much.